Coming up next on Headline Humboldt, a local couple recently transplanted to Humboldt County tells the dailymail.com that they are being squeezed by county officials for a large amount of cash due to cannabis code violations done by the previous owners of their property. And they are not alone. Also, Humboldt County Grand Jury Foreperson Richard Bergstresser joins us to discuss recent grand jury reports, including a call for more citizen oversight of the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. From the top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for joining us. A government for and by the people is the idea, right? It's encoded in all of our founding documents and forms the backbone of this representative democracy. Even as the public has recently grown increasingly disillusioned with the division and protracted processes that make up our largely dysfunctional federal government, many people invest their interest, time, and attention into local governmental affairs, trying their best to keep government accountable and working efficiently. This is the role and process of California's civil grand jury system, allowing for normal, civic-minded residents to investigate the performance of government employees, departments, and programs in order to ensure the smart and effective use of public resources and dollars. It can be a contentious process, but those in government are aware of its importance and go through the motions every year, receiving these reports and addressing their critiques. Yes, they go through the motions. Yet over the 2 decades I've spent in this business, too much of the grand jury's hard work is often glibly received with a shrug of the shoulders and banal explanations as to why things are the way they are. I understand public servants are busy and often do their very best to stretch tight governmental budgets as far as they can go. But the difficulty of their jobs and the lack of resources does not mean that these often lengthy and definitive analyses can be ignored or shelved. The civil grand jury system represents one of the few remaining mechanisms in government where the people can actually engage with and hold our government accountable for what they do and how they behave. In a few moments, we'll speak with Humboldt County Grand Jury Foreperson Richard Bergstresser to discuss the recent reports issued by the grand jury, as well as the processes involved and how interested members of the public can participate. But first, the news. Dailymail.com, an online British tabloid read by millions all over the world, is reporting on a Humboldt County problem that allegedly leaves some private citizens in the lurch for offenses they didn't commit. According to the report, Corrine and Doug Thomas moved to Humboldt County from the Los Angeles area after the 2018 Woolsey fire left their previous home in ashes and their lives destroyed. Using the insurance payout from that disaster, the couple ultimately bought a new home in Humboldt County amid redwood forests to enter a new phase in their lives with the house and property of their dreams. According to the article, another resident, Rhonda Olson, age 64, faces fines of more than $7 million because the previous owners of their property committed various code violations while growing cannabis. That is, because someone else grew weed on the property before she bought it. The report cites other victims as well, including Blue Graham, who was reportedly fined around $900,000 for growing weed in greenhouses that he claims were actually vegetables grown for his restaurant. These claims and others are made in a lawsuit recently filed by the Institute for Justice. Attorney Jared McLean reportedly told dailymail.com that he believes officials were lashing out in an attempt to finally realize some of the financial benefits that were expected to come with cannabis legalization, but which have largely so far failed to materialize. According to McLean, the county acknowledges that homeowners like the Thomases and Olson have never grown cannabis, but they maintain that they are still responsible for the fees. We'll continue following this story as it develops and are reaching out to county officials to get their side of the story. Joining us now in studio is Humboldt County Grand Jury Foreperson Richard Bergstresser. I think this is the third time we've had you on the show.
Yes, it is.
He's a great talker, so we'd like to have him in here to talk about the grand jury's role in governmental insight and the recent reports issued in that vein. Thank you for joining us, Richard.
Thank you for having me.
So you guys have released a bevy of reports in recent days. I have 3 of them here. There's a lot of paper. These are lengthy and detailed reports. But let's first talk about what the grand jury is for people who may not know and how you guys go about what you do.
Okay. The grand jury is actually as constituted here only in California and Nevada, where it is 19 citizens, local citizens, who volunteer their time for a year and spend at the minimum of 6 hours a week this time of year, 40, 30, 40, preparing these reports, investigating, doing interviews, reviewing documents, touring facilities, and really trying to dig into some issues that are important locally. Those issues come to us usually via complaint, and sometimes just things that are prominent in the community that we feel should be investigated.
Yeah. Now, so people who are served on the board only get paid a nominal amount for their time, right?
Yeah, it's $20 for every 7 hours.
And each person serves a term of
1 year with an option for a second year.
Okay, and you are now in your
second year.
And you are a former police officer, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so you're bringing some investigative experience that maybe the board or the jury may have lacked in other times, or at least was less developed, and you've been working to give them that expertise, is that correct?
Yeah, one of the strengths of the grand jury is you have 19 people from all walks of life, and they bring all their experience. Most of them have not done investigations.
Yeah.
So trying to bring people along in just the basics of how to look at things in a neutral yet comprehensive way, try to bring people along that way.
Yeah. Now you've been doing this for going on 2 years. Mm-hmm. Do you notice, I mean, sometimes people talk about it being like a bunch of gadflies or cranky old people who want to, be critical of government. Do you ever notice that kind of thing, or any axes to grind, or is it really just an impartial group of citizens?
Some people might come in the door with a couple personal agendas, and that goes away pretty quickly because we can't have personal agendas in there. That's not why we're there. Yeah. And it would be an improper use of our limited authority to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you have to have 12 people agree to get anything done, right?
Yes, you need a supermajority.
Of the 19, which is the statutory number, right?
Yeah, in all counties except the really tiny ones and LA, which have smaller and larger, respectively.
Okay. So now we have 3 reports so far issued this year, and there's going to be more, right? So we may have you back again this year to talk more about those. But so we'll start with the annual tour of the Humboldt County Custody and Corrections Facilities. So what's the process here? Every year you guys go out on a field trip and you investigate each of the facilities that are meant to hold inmates, is that right?
Well, that's the statutory minimum, that we have to investigate any prison in the county, and the Eel River Conservation Camp is the only current state prison, and then custodial facilities, specifically the jail. Okay. Traditionally, we've explored a lot of other things, the sheriff's farm, the animal shelter, the coroner's office, et cetera, because they'll kind of fall into the same rough categories. Sure. And because we've done it traditionally, it's really important to maintain that continuity, I think.
So what did you find? I mean, it sounds like the people there are working hard, but there may be some issues with staffing and also with the quality of some of the buildings, is that right?
Yeah, I think staffing is not a surprise to anybody. It shows up in just about all of our reports last year. Yeah. That's not a revelation. What is nice to see is the folks who are in place. Most of them are overworked, a lot of them are working overtime, but they're staying on course. They know why they're there, they know what their jobs are. It's actually they're very pleasant to interact with in the way they do their jobs. Yeah. So that's really heartening. And they're working hard. They don't have enough resources.
Yeah. Now, one of the things in your report says is that there have been some recommendations that the grand jury has made in the past that haven't necessarily been followed through on or have been ignored in some cases, and that those problems may be getting worse over time. Can you talk a little bit about what those earlier recommendations were and what needs to be done that isn't?
Well, specifically the one that popped up this year was the roof at the animal shelter. That was brought up last year, and the response was, we're on it. To paraphrase. And there is money dedicated to it from a citizen who donated $60,000. Yeah. It's unclear why it has not moved forward. A work requisition was put in some time ago. I'd have to look at a report, but I think 2022. And the problem is, with every rainstorm, the problem gets a little bit worse. Every drop of water that gets through the roof makes things worse. So that's really the highest priority item we identified this year. Traditionally, everybody knows that Semper Virens and the whole Wood Street campus is in bad physical shape.
And you guys have made that recommendation before, that it needs a new building, right?
Time and time again. Everyone knows that. No one really disagrees with that. So there's no point in us saying it yet again. Let's deal with some of the things that we can affect tomorrow or next week or next month.
Now, so that's the, is there anything else I missed there that you think we should mention?
No, except that even the facilities that are not great shape are being maintained very well. And that's another credit to the employees.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's important to mention. I mean, and that's another facet that I wanted to point out about these reports. They're not all critical, even though they're dealing with issues and they're pointing out things that need to be fixed. A lot of the times you're highlighting good morale or good performance, and it's basically just like a citizen's overview, which I think is fantastic in this day and age when so many people feel disaffected by their governments.
Well, and I would just add that of the 3 we've issued so far, I don't think any of them is critical.
Yeah.
There are some things that could be done better, but none of them are critical. We're not, it's certainly not an attack.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no one named or pointed to in any of these that is saying you're doing something wrong. So I want to be clear on that. So another thing, this one came to me as a surprise, and I haven't really thought about this issue before, but there's the Humboldt County government basically leases and owns some of the buildings that houses its offices. It spends $500,000 every month on leasing buildings, which amounts to roughly $6 million a year to lease office space for employees throughout the county. And you guys are asking the question, would the money be better spent in the long run by owning these facilities? So to answer that question, what say you?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I think it's true of any, if you are renting for a long time for wherever you live, you're probably going to reach the point where having purchased, if you have the ability, would pay off. And that's generally recognized as a 7-year period where the weight tips on the other side of the scale.
Yeah.
We were a little surprised, and I think one of the reasons we pursued the report was just to let everybody know this is really a big thing.
Yeah.
Again, the county knows this. The folks in Public Works, very helpful. They know this. They have plans. They have ideas that they would like to implement.
Yeah.
They don't have the resources to do so.
Yeah.
We pointed out some very good things. A lot of, if not all of Child Welfare Services is now consolidated into one building. That's good for one-stop shopping.
Yeah.
So the consolidation is a great customer service idea.
Yeah.
Beyond that, having everybody under one roof is likely more efficient. The issue is they're paying rent.
Yeah, yeah.
And we know, and we're not trying to get the county to spend money it doesn't have.
Yeah.
Which is why we suggested something like a bond issue.
Yeah.
Which, a 10 or 20-year bond is a long-term view. If we can get these buildings either purchased or built specifically by the county, there's going to be money saved in the long run.
And you had mentioned that you can work the bond issue in such a way that you can make it predictable in your annual budget. Arcata has done that, as you mentioned.
Arcata did that with their public employees' pension obligations.
Yeah.
So they took out a bond, and now they know every year what they're going to pay. It's a smoothing is what it's called.
Yeah, yeah.
And the county has the ability to do the same or similar with a bond to purchase these facilities.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that you're not asking the county to spend money it doesn't have, because that's going to be one of the responses.
Absolutely.
We don't have the money. Thanks for speaking.
Yeah, if you don't know that we're 12 million in the hole, you're not paying attention.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it would be absurd for us to recommend big ticket items that we can't pay for.
Yeah.
That said, we recommend some small ticket items.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like as we go through these like dry periods where we don't have enough money, it pays to look at substantive changes that may make us more fiscally healthy in the long run, and also increase customer satisfaction from citizens who have to come in and deal with government. If it's co-located at a building where they're all in the same place, instead of having to go from this place to this place and back and forth and on the computer and all of that, in the end you're going to increase happiness in the heart of the electorate, and you're going to make your own jobs easier. And
not to pat ourselves on the back, in the Tuesday Board of Supervisors meeting, these exact ideas came up. Whether they were spurred by us, although I think it was referred to, I don't know. But it's good to see this conversation about purchasing versus leasing and consolidation being discussed. Because that's exactly why we're here, is to put those ideas into the public forum.
Yeah. Now, real quick though, if we were owning, I mean, I guess it's hard to quantify, but if we were owning, you mentioned that it's $6 million per year. If we owned it eventually, I mean, how much would after 7 years, the payments, I mean, how would you?
I'm not a real estate expert, but every year you're building equity.
Yeah, yeah.
So every year you have more, let's say, in your pocket.
Yeah.
So after 7 years, the general thinking is you are now paying yourself as opposed to paying the landlord. So gotcha. Every year, years 8, 9, 10, add on, are you building equity and owning the buildings. That gives you a lot of freedom. You can rent out unused capacity. You can do what alterations you need to. It does come with a little expense in that you then have to maintain them, but you're really paying for that anyway, just filtered through the landlord.
Sure.
So yeah, having these buildings under your control is an easier way to do business.
Yeah. And some people might say, well, if you own the building or if you lease it, you don't have to pay property taxes. But in fact, on some of these properties, they are paying the property taxes, right?
Well, all of the leased
them.
buildings are being paying property taxes. Just I think it's 9 of them, maybe I'm wrong, that the lease agreement is that the county pays the property tax in addition to the rent. Now, that probably balances out. It's just a detail as opposed to something that costs more money.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you point out in the report also that DHHS, which is in that building on, is it G Street, I think?
Fronts on a lot of
next to
buildings.
Domino's.
Yeah, that's the professional building where a lot of their administration is.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a hefty, expense every year to keep that up and going. Did I miss anything on this that you think we should mention, or is
gee, I mean, there's so much in all of these.
There's so much in there. Yes.
No, I think we've kind of defined it fairly well
on the surface. Yeah. And then, so this is the meaty one, at least in terms of what, the current moment in history, and also there's been some reaction by the sheriff in the local media. But basically, Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, you guys are recommending that they establish a civilian oversight panel, board, something along those lines, and then also establish the position of Inspector General. Why do you think that's necessary?
Well, I should be clear to begin with, we're not alleging that the Sheriff's Department is doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
What we're saying is people need a clear view of what's going on with their government. Nothing is more high profile than law enforcement. When I did this myself, you have the ability to deprive somebody of their civil rights without a trial.
Yeah.
That's a huge responsibility. Sure. So people look at that and they want to know why.
Yeah.
Again, not saying the Sheriff's Department is not telling them the right thing. People don't necessarily believe the person in power telling you what they're doing. So they need a transparent view. We've seen with the Eureka Police Department that this works.
Because they have now both of these. They have both a civilian review board, and they also are contracting with a company down south to provide the Inspector General services. What would an Inspector General do? The
Inspector General is, two different ideas. The Inspector General will be somebody with experience and expertise in law enforcement who can have access to a lot of the records, including personnel files, to basically do a double check on a lot of the internal affairs issues and a lot of the use of force, the higher profile issues out there. And you'll see with Eureka, they've brought up some things that Eureka said, oh, that's a good idea, or we don't really agree with it, but there are things that contradict in a progressive way what the department is doing. So that helps everybody.
Absolutely.
And the cost of that is minimal. I think Eureka is paying $90,000 a year, which is in the big scheme not much. And the oversight board, aside from some staff support, is free.
And so, I mean, I don't know if you would know this yet, because it probably depends on what the county would ultimately do, but who would make up a civilian board? I mean, how would that process work?
I think it would be like any other board or committee that works under the county umbrella. They'd be appointed, maybe it's one per district, plus a few at large. It can be formulated in a lot of different ways. That's the county's to decide. But it should be people from every walk of life.
Now, we have a response that the Sheriff Hansel gave to the North Coast Journal. In response to this, I'm going to read it real quick. Hansel says, I'm an elected official. If there's going to be oversight, then why aren't all elected officials subjected to oversight? Are we singling out the Sheriff's Office for some particular reason? I don't see a specific reason that they're saying the system we have in place is not working. To create another government body to provide advisory type decision making to the sheriff, is that really necessary? He also cited the Humboldt County Critical Incident Response Team with the DA as investigative lead, as well as the Human Rights Commission and the grand jury as providers of the oversight that you guys are recommending. How do you respond to that?
As long as I can remember them all, let me address them in backwards order.
If you need that.
Oversight of the Sheriff's Department in a case-by-case basis is not the job of the civil grand jury. We are there to look at systemic issues. In fact, we cannot look at case by case. That would be incredibly improper of us to second-guess an individual case. What were our issues on there also? Well, I'll say
the Human Rights Commission.
The Human Rights Commission, they do what they do, but there's similar. They don't have a case-by-case oversight role. This is not second-guessing the sheriff. This is helping, we hope, the Sheriff's Department to have the public have confidence in them. The reason we're talking about the sheriff and not other elected officials is the nature of the work that the sheriff's department does. As I was saying, you can deprive somebody of their civil liberties. You can commit an extrajudicial killing, which may be 100% legal and proper and necessary. That's a huge responsibility, and the people in the county want to know it's being done right.
Exactly right. And when he talks about the critical incident response team with the DA as, you know, sort of a separate or individual independent lead investigator in that, I mean, they're all a unit. I mean, I don't want to say that the DA is always in the pocket of law enforcement in these investigations, but that is a perception that some people have, and they're all local police officials. Now, the State Department of Justice can come in if they think something is wrong in that situation or something smells and do what it wants to do. But at the same time, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, and especially involving officer-involved shootings, it seems like that would be an effective way to help build trust between the sheriff's office and the community.
And that's one of the points. You know, DOJ will come in by law if there is a shooting of an unarmed civilian. They have to come. Aside from that, it is whether they're requested or whether they think there's something that needs to be done. And again, it's not suggesting there's any collusion, but you know, we're in a pretty insular county. There's 135,000 of us. You can't go to Safeway without seeing people you know. So having an outside perspective, the 30,000-foot view down, is helpful for anything we do. And I mean, you mentioned that the EPD has had this in place for a while, and you being a part of the law enforcement community, though you know retired, what's your sense of how they feel about it? Are they begrudging that? I'm hearing nothing but positive.
You
know, and EPD has had a lot of change over the years. They used to have a very bad use of force reputation, et cetera. They have seemed to have embraced this oversight. Because it's not critical, it is opening doors.
Now, one of the things that you talk about in there is the community-oriented policing model as well, and how that's becoming more and more popular across the country. And that sort of brings me to the idea of this historic moment in terms of law enforcement. The culture is changing in terms of how we view police, and there's a lot of history now with George Floyd and all the things that have happened, and I know that they weren't in Humboldt County, but they happened, and there are people who are questioning the use of policing authority to deprive people of their civil liberties, and whether or not that's always justified. And I think some people feel more comfortable with that extra level of accountability. But can you speak to that, that moment in history part of it, and is that playing into this?
Yeah, it can't not. But let's step away from the George Floyd and any of the specific things and just say, as a whole, the country is looking at law enforcement more critically. They want to see more transparency. We I'm retired, have a history not always great, usually okay. People have mixed feelings. So anything you can do to open the door and let's see it's sunshine. Anything you can do is going to make that relationship better. It's going to enhance community policing because now we're all talking about the same thing.
And one other point I wanted to mention is that on paper, the Board of Supervisors has authority over the sheriff's office, right? At least in some matters, but that's limited.
It's in terms of budget. The sheriff is an elected official. He does things as he sees fit, as it should be. So does every board member. So does the treasurer. No one's meddling in the treasurer's business. We don't want meddle in the sheriff's business. His oversight comes in the form of money.
And I think if there's any other questions I had there. I don't know if I missed anything important. Is there anything else I should mention?
Probably.
Lots, especially on this particular issue. There's a ton. It's complex.
I've known the sheriff for 15 years. I respect him personally and professionally. This is not suggesting that he or his department are doing anything wrong. We're suggesting that at this point in time in our society, this is a good idea.
And real quick, he also mentioned that recall and the elections are a way to hold him accountable. But as the report makes clear, that's every 4 years, and recall is such a huge production that if an individual has an issue where they think they were treated unfairly, this would provide a new mechanism for them to get heard.
And this is not a personal thing about the sheriff. This is about the institution and the people it serves. I think Billy's doing a fine job. I have no reason to doubt that.
We've had him on the show.
He's a good guy. So it's about the institution.
So that's it for the report so far. Like I said, we'll have you back when more come out. We have about 3 minutes left. And if people are interested in serving, well, first let's say if people want to make a complaint to the grand jury, how do they go about that?
They can go online, do a search for Humboldt County Civil Grand Jury, which will take you to the county's website. There'll be complaint forms as well as applications there.
Okay.
As well as access to every report that's been issued for the last 15 or so years.
Yeah.
Which is a really good resource for people.
Absolutely, and I think it's a good way for people to sort of keep track of how problems have been noticed and maybe neglected and ignored or dealt with, depending on what's been...
Or even more importantly, in a lot of ways, those that have been dealt with, that the government has responded and done a really good job of remediating.
Yeah. Who would you like to see? I mean, you're done at the end of this term.
I'm done.
But someone's going to be there, they're going to be the grand jury foreman, and they're looking for people who are probably conscientious and... What?
Yeah, the application process is really simple. You fill something in and just have to make sure there's no disqualifiers. You're not currently in office, you're not currently in prison, things like that. Very basic
stuff. You can be president, but you can't be
I'm not touching that.
Sorry.
So, and then it's the court that decides, and the court decides by literally drawing from a hat.
Yeah.
Because there can't be the finger on the scales for any of this.
Yeah.
What we're looking for is anybody. Yeah. Anybody who cares and can commit to that amount of work in the next year. Yeah. The power comes from every walk of life walking in the door and giving different perspectives.
Yeah.
So as long as you care about what's going on locally, you're a good grand jury member.
Yeah. So let's throw up that graphic real quick. Humboldt County Courthouse, Grand Jury Office, 825 5th Street in Eureka. That's on the first floor, and people can go there to...
There are applications and complaint forms in the door. We don't have it staffed very often. We receive no real county support aside from having a council review our reports.
Yeah.
So we can't keep office hours regularly.
Yeah, yeah.
But those applications and those complaint forms are in the door, and you can just fill one out and mail it or slide it under a door.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Richard, for your hard work and your service to the community. And I'm sorry to say your term is ending because I think you've done great work this year and last year. So
it's time for somebody else.
Yeah. Well,
but thank you.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate that.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. That's all for this week. Next time, tune in to see Keith's recent tour with the massive wind power farm in Palm Springs, California, to get a sense of the scale of these machines and how they can help in the search for cleaner sources of energy. Also, we attended the recent Contact in the Desert event in Indian Wells. We'll have a report on what happened, as well as excerpts from several interviews that can ultimately be seen in full on our UAP-related podcast, Neon Galactic. Stay tuned, stay informed.